Hey guys, today I will be talking about Guadalupe and the Flower World Prophecy. Guadalupe and the Flower World Prophecy is a nonfiction book about the historical context and significance of the pre-Columbian culture with regards to the apparition of Our Lady of Guadalupe that occurred in Mexico in 1531. It was published in 2023 by the couple Joseph and Monique Gonzalez, who have spent the last decade assiduously researching the Guadalupe event in search for deeper answers to the question, why was the apparition of Guadalupe so influential on the indigenous people, and why did this event spark mass conversions in the millions? Sorry, I have allergies. The content includes their collected findings that link pre-Columbian myth, religion, and philosophy with the Guadalupe event. The author's thesis is that God had been preparing the indigenous people for the advent of Catholicism through their culture. 1531, indigenous convert Juan Diego was walking in the hill of Tepeyac, modern-day Mexico City, when he heard beautiful music coming from his surroundings. He was greeted by the Virgin Mary and given instruction to tell the local bishop to build a temple upon that hill. The local bishop was skeptical and needed proof, so Juan Diego planned on returning to the hill, but was sidetracked due to his moribund uncle who needed assistance. Juan Diego wanted to see the Virgin Mary, but his uncle needed immediate attention. He needed to cross Tepeyac to see his sick family member, and he tried to circumvent the Virgin Mary. However, she finds him and tells him not to worry about his uncle, for her instructions are far more important. She assuaged him that his uncle would be fine, and to go back to the bishop with the proof that he sought. She tells him to pick up a bouquet of flowers on the hill with his tilma, a cloak, and to bring them to the bishop. Diligently, he wraps up some exquisitely beautiful flowers and reports back to the diocese. As Juan Diego is about to show the bishop his findings, the flowers fall to the floor and the tilma, unfolding, miraculously depicts that iconic painting of the Virgin Mother that is so well known in the world today. The bishop falls to the floor and immediately calls for building that church on Tepeyac Hill. The original tilma is extant in almost pristine condition today in the Mexico City Basilica. The book details pre-Columbian religion in Mexico and the surrounding areas. The Nahua people, that is, the Aztecs, were not the only people in Mexico. There existed many different tribes with unique customs, language, and culture. However, there were overarching symbols that were shared among them that stemmed as far back as the Olmec people from 1600 BC to 400 AD. Many pre-Columbian religions, including the Nahua, had a celestial realm similar to heaven. Scholars today refer it to as Scholars today refer to it as Flower World, although the Nahua term is in Xochitlalpan, Intonacatlalpan. This was a sacred arena with beautiful surroundings and exquisite wildlife, sort of like a Garden of Eden. Enchanting sounds would resonate throughout this world, as if music echoed from nature itself. This realm served as this realm served as a divine place that people sought to enter after death. However, it was limited to warriors, mothers who died giving birth, rulers, and nobility. The flower world would have been known throughout The flower world would have been known throughout these pagan cultures in some way, shape, or form, but most typically it was disseminated through song and dance, as indigenous people were tremendous storytellers, songwriters, and dancers. One of the most convincing pieces of evidence for flower world in pre-Columbian belief is known through the Cuica Peyacalotl, a Nahuatl group of poems. These poems are also known as the Cantares Mexicanos. We are indebted to Fray Bernardino de Sahagún, one of the early Catholic missionaries, who carefully and diligently learned the native language and culture, and translated these poems into Spanish during the 16th century. Sahagún is important and considered the first anthropologist. The Cuica, such a hard word, I'm sorry. The Cuica Paya Coyotl, translated as the origin of songs, is about a poet-singer who searches for elusive flowers to bring back to his people so they can witness the real truth. So they can witness real truth, goodness, and beauty. Entering the flower world, the poet-singer becomes lost and receives help from birds. Later, he gets a glimpse of the flowers, but is unable to retrieve them. He wonders whether it was all a dream and is left with a bittersweet longing for the flowers of that sacred place. This longing for the flowers of flower world will remain in the hearts and minds of many pre-Columbian cultures, embedded in their songs, philosophy, religion, and art. Flower, flowers had deep religious significance for the pre-Columbian people. For example, maize was incredibly important to the Olmecs. Fertility, rain, and maize gods were crucial components in their beliefs. Today we can find depictions of flowers in murals, caves, and temples. Another example is the symbol of the quatrefoil that is known throughout pre-Columbian societies. The quatrefoil, the quatrefoil, sim, the quatrefoil symbol possibly stemmed from agricultural-related worship. It looks like a four-leaf clover, depicting the four cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west, with a central point. This central point, the axis mundi, was often the place that led or pointed towards a divine realm, i.e., the flower world. Some scholars indicate that the axis mundi served as an intermediary space between the afterlife and Earth. Some caves in Mexico have the symbol of the quatrefoil at their entrance. The flower world was thought to be located within a cave or at the top of a mountain. Flower mountains and temples are abundant in pre-Columbian art and architecture. The salient point is that the flower world was a sacred place akin to heaven for Christians, although not entirely similar. When the Catholic missionaries tried to evangelize the natives, their efforts weren't as successful as they would have liked. It was difficult to evangelize a totally different culture who spoke a totally different language. Frustrated, the missionaries felt at a loss. They devoted their time. They devoted their times and lives learning. They devoted their lives to learning the language and getting in touch with them. Despite common misconception, the Catholics were great patrons to the natives, instituting hospitals and schools. Many priests and religious were grieved when the natives were mistreated by the Spanish soldiers. The bishops filed complaints to Rome, and Pope Paul III promulgated the papal bull Sublimis Deus in 1537. Sublimis Deus was one of the most important bulls of all time regarding human ethics. It considered the indigenous people as fully rational humans with rights to freedom and property. It also illegalized their enslavement. No one talks about that. Since the priests were getting nowhere, it seemed only a miracle would attain the conversion of the natives. It was then when Juan Diego's vision occurred. After that event, millions of natives sought to be baptized. They would sometimes travel over 200 miles to receive the sacraments of the Catholic faith. So many desired to be converted that the Pope had to intervene due to doubts of the validity of such mass conversions. It was the Guadalupe event that essentially created the modern Mexican state as we know it. For to be Mexican and not Catholic is a breach of one of the most fundamental characteristics that define them. The million-dollar question is, why was the Guadalupe event so powerful for the natives, who up until then were unfazed by this new religion? The answer is that the apparition of Guadalupe was the link that combined the flower world prophecy with Christianity. It was the logical conclusion of their over 1,000-year-old beliefs. God had been preparing the pre-Columbians for the coming of Jesus through their expectations in the flower world. The earliest recording of the story of Juan Diego comes from the Nican Mopoa, retold by Luis Lasso de la Vega in Nahuatl. The story was disseminated by song and dance and reached eyes and ears far from Tepeyac. It is said that many families abandoned their old lives and traveled over 200 miles just to get baptized. Idols were burnt, polyamorous relationships ended, and devotion to Our Lady in Christ grew by large numbers. There is an uncanny similarity between the Nican Mopoa and the Quicapeacayotl. Both follow similar narratives and reach their climax in striking similarities. Both follow the mythos of a hero who has gone in search of the flowers from the flower world in order to bring them back to his family, or to the people. They both meet with someone who guides them, Juan Diego with the Virgin Mary, and the poet-singer with the hummingbirds. Both end up on this celestial journey. Also, both stories mention the same type of birds. The difference is the difference in the stories is that in the Quicopeyoteotl, the hero never finds the flowers and fails his mission, whereas Juan Diego actually fulfills the mission, since he finds the flowers and brings them back to the people. Juan Diego completes the pre-Columbian religion, reaching its logical conclusion in Catholicism. Juan Diego, being a Macehual, a lowly commoner, powerfully expresses the message of the Gospels, that is, that Jesus Christ sanctified the poor by being incarnated as one of them, whereas before Juan Diego, only a few select were given entrance to the flower world. He effectively opened the doors so that all men of any class may be inheritors to that divine realm that the natives have been seeking for over 1,000 years. Through Christ, all pagans in Mesoamerica were given the possibility of everlasting life. The real flower world. Through Christ, all pagans in Mesoamerica were given the possibility of everlasting life, the real flower world. The indigenous must have felt sublime ecstasy when they heard of Juan Diego and the apparition. This would explain the ind this would explain the indefatigable fervor of millions to become baptized in the name of the one true God. Their flowers were here on earth and no longer suspended in this imaginative, mythical prison. So powerful was Our Lady of Guadalupe that she would serve as the most iconic and ubiquitous image of the Latin world. Separating Guadalupe from the Latin people is impossible, for it's so deeply entrenched in their identity. Some claim the Quicopeacolotl some claim the Quicopeacolotl some claim the Quicopeacoyotl as a fabrication, or at best a fanciful deceit. However, the Catholic missionaries would have no idea about the intricacies of the native religion, as the flower world concept was only recently hypothesized and discussed in academia. It would not be possible that they knew the significance of flowers nor of the religion in general. On top of this, the Quicopeacoyotl was not known to the Spanish until 20 years after the Guadalupe event. Therefore, it could not have been a reference for the writers of the Nican Mopawa. It's also crucial to remember the historical context of the time. The Council of Trent and the Counter-Reformation was in full swing. Any attempts to fuse pagan religion with Catholicism would have been met with fierce opposition, censure, and scrutiny. Sahagún himself is recorded saying that the poems are too arcane and difficult to decipher. Today, the Tilma in Mexico City is the most visited Catholic pilgrimage in the whole world. Our Lady of Guadalupe is the patroness of the continental Americas. As Queen of heaven and earth, she continues to listen to our pleas and deigns to watch over the children of God, every single person on earth who is sanctified by her Son's death and resurrection. This book will definitely strengthen any Marian devotion, especially if you are Hispanic or Latino.